All right, to the Western Cape now, where land grabs have been ongoing this morning in Vrygrond. Residents are protesting, we understand, against a lack of housing. eNCA's Athi Mtongana has been in the field. She's back in our Cape Town studio and joins us on Newsday. Athi, good afternoon to you. So just first of all, perhaps flesh the reason out for us as to why people have been protesting. How bad then is that housing shortage?
Let me start here, Jeremy, with the current situation right now in Vrygrond. We understand that residents are now meeting with their ward councillor. His name is Gary Gordon from the DA. He is now engaging with the residents, trying to restore calm into the area. So what's been happening, Jeremy, since yesterday, at around 8 in the evening, they started looting a liquor store close to the area, and they also set alight a private vehicle. Now, this was as a result of the protest that had spread from inside the community to outside. Prince George Drive, the M5, was also closed. Traffic lights there were also affected by the service delivery protests. So what the residents there are saying is that they want the certain piece of land. It's a vacant piece of land, which is really very close to the community. It's inside the community. So what they did is, Jeremy, that they started to mark spaces where they would start erecting structures. They attempted to try and build some of their shacks. Then we were told by community leaders that yesterday the anti-land invasion unit, accompanied by the Red Ants, started preventing that from happening. So that is why the protest spilled over to the M5, Prince George Drive, and onto Pick n Pay's liquor store where it was looted, and that car that I mentioned that was set alight. We do understand that there are some people that were arrested. Right now, like I said to you, the ward councillor is now engaging with the residents to try and restore calm, because if there's anything I can tell you about those residents, Jeremy, is that they are very determined to continue their protest action until, you know, that piece of land is given to them. They've been saying to me that they've been waiting for that piece of land since 1999. Some of them had already been occupying that structure as far back as 1999, but they were told by authorities to move out of that particular piece of land so that they could level it, so they could make it decent and appropriate enough for people to start building. So now they're saying the wait has been far too long, and they do want that land given to them for houses.
And Athi Mtongana, what is of more concern, and this is going to put a lot of pressure on Councillor Gordon, is that while the community is threatening to intensify their protests if their grievances are not addressed, we're also starting now to approach the winter period. We also know that many shacks within that region, within that area, are vulnerable to shack fires.
Shack fires, flooding, any natural disaster, Jeremy, you name it. If there's anything to take out from the informal settlements here in the Western Cape, and perhaps even across the country, is that the way in which they are built, particularly these ones in the Western Cape, they are so built close to each other. Now, this speaks to the fact that there's a lot of, you know, people living in these conditions. There's a lot of people living in these informal settlements. Some of them are travel from other provinces to come and make ends meet here in the Western Cape. And so as a result, they are, you know, occupying pieces of land where there's a lot of shacks and there are no fire breaks in between them. So when fire breaks out in one shack, it spreads into the entire informal settlement. And we're talking about flooding as well. The winter season, you're right, is approaching, and they might also, you know, be faced with those challenges. So now they are really putting pressure on authorities. They're putting pressure on government to try and speed up the process. We know as much as parliamentarians can now discuss this whole issue of land expropriation without compensation, on the ground, on the streets, in the communities, people are actually starting to take land into their own hands. They are now starting to see pieces of land where they can start building, and they're moving on it, Jeremy. And in fact, they said to me, the community leaders said to me, that they at this point have no control over what residents do, because they do try and engage with city officials to try to find a way forward, but some somehow the trust between community leaders, city officials and the community is lost, in that they end up having to wait more and more for answers about when they're getting the land to start building the houses. And the most frustrating part, they said to me, Jeremy, is that they see this open piece of land and it's not doing anything. And so they feel that they should take it upon themselves to start erecting structures. But we know that authorities have been calling on South Africans not to just illegally grab land.
So we await the outcome of that meeting between the City Councillor and the residents and the community members. Athi Mtongana, thank you very much indeed. Live